The alarm screamed through every corridor of Research Station Theta 7. Red lights flashed against the metal walls, making shadows jump and dance in ways that hurt the eyes. Commander Velthar's 6 legs clicked rapidly against the floor as he rushed toward the control center. His insect-like body moved with jerky, panicked motions. The station shook. It was not a small tremor. The entire structure groaned like a dying animal. Through the observation windows, the neutron star below them pulsed with angry light. It looked beautiful and terrible at the same time. Status report. Velthar's translator box turned his chittering sounds into words the other species could understand. Quinn, the chief scientist, stood at the main console. Her crystalline body refracted the red emergency lights into 1,000 tiny rainbows. But there was nothing beautiful about the data scrolling across her screens. Gravitational Stabilizer 3 has failed completely. Stabilizers 1, 2, and 4 are operating at 30% capacity. 5 and 6 are offline. What does this mean? Asked a young Velen technician, his fur standing on end with fear. It means, Quinn said slowly, that in approximately 4 hours, the gravitational waves from the neutron star will tear this station apart. Piece by piece. The control room fell silent except for the alarms. 47 crew members from 12 different species worked on this station. They had spent 8 years studying this particular neutron star. The data they had collected was priceless. Losing it would set galactic science back decades. We evacuate, Velthar said. Immediately. Send the emergency signal. Commander, Quinn's voice was very quiet. If we evacuate, we lose everything. All the research. All the data cores are integrated with the station's power system. We cannot remove them in time. Velthar's antennae drooped. 8 years of work. Gone. But what choice did they have? Lives matter more than data, he said firmly. Begin evacuation procedures. That was when Jiwan spoke up. She had been standing quietly in the corner, watching the data screens with calm eyes. The human engineer was smaller than most species on the station, with dark hair pulled back in a simple tie. She wore the standard station uniform, but somehow on humans, it always looked slightly wrong, like they were not meant for such neat, organized clothing. We can handle it, Jiwan said. Everyone turned to look at her. Velthar's compound eyes focused on the human with something like disbelief. Excuse me? He said. The stabilizer problem. We can fix it. Beside Jiwan, another human nodded. Daehyun was younger, with an easy smile that seemed completely out of place given the current crisis. The human physicist had been reviewing the technical readouts on his tablet. This is not a matter for discussion, Velthar said, his translator adding an edge of irritation to his words. The gravitational stabilizers use technology that took my people 400 years to develop. No disrespect to your species, but humans have been in space for less than 100 years. 73 years, actually, Daehyun said cheerfully. He was still smiling, still looking at his tablet like he was reading something interesting rather than a disaster report. But yeah, we can fix this. One. The third human in the room, a woman named Mireille, stepped forward. She was the station's medical officer, calm and practical in the way she moved. Commander, what do you have to lose by letting us try? Time, Velthar snapped. Time we need for evacuation. If you attempt repairs and fail, you will doom us all. If we don't try, Jiwan said evenly, you lose the research anyway. Either way, you should begin evacuation procedures for non-essential personnel. But let us work, Quinn's crystalline form chimed softly, the sound she made when thinking hard about something. Commander, the humans have a point. Evacuating will take at least 90 minutes. If they wish to attempt repairs during that time, we lose nothing. Velthar wanted to argue. He wanted to say no. Humans were reckless. Everyone in the galactic community knew this. They took risks that made other species shudder. They had only been space-capable for a single lifetime, and already they had a reputation for surviving situations that should have killed them. But that was just it. They survived. Against all logic, they survived. Fine, Velthar said. You have until evacuation is complete. But I am assigning Quinn to supervise. If she says you are making the situation worse, you stop immediately. Fair enough, Jiwan said. She was already walking toward the engineering console, her movements quick and efficient. Daehyun followed, still looking at his tablet. I will need access to the main stabilizer controls, Jiwan said to Quinn. And a complete schematic of the power distribution network. Of course. Quinn's long, crystalline fingers danced across the console, pulling up the requested information. But I must warn you. The stabilizers are failing because of quantum field degradation in the gravity projectors. This is not something that can be simply repaired. The parts are failing at a subatomic level. Jiwan said, studying the schematics. She did not look worried. Daehyun leaned over her shoulder. Oh, I see the problem. The quantum field needs recalibration, but the calibration processors are tied to stabilizer 3, which is completely dead. Yes, Quinn said slowly. Which is why repair is impossible. Without the calibration processors, we cannot tune the quantum fields. Without tuning the quantum fields, the stabilizers will continue to degrade. Right, Daehyun said. He was grinning now, which made Quinn very uncomfortable. Why was the human smiling? Did he not understand the danger? So, we need to bypass the calibration processors and tune the fields manually. That is impossible, Quinn said flatly. The calculations required would take a team of scientists weeks to complete. We have hours. It's not impossible, Daehyun said. It's just really, really hard. There's a difference. Around them, the station shook again. Harder this time. Something groaned deep in the structure. A sound like metal screaming. The gravity fluctuated for just a moment, making everyone's stomach lurch. Mireille had moved to the communications console. I'm sending a message to the human transport ship that's due to arrive next week, asking them to expedite their arrival. Why? Velthar demanded. Because, Mireille said calmly, we're going to need more hands, and probably some supplies. You are already assuming you will succeed, Velthar said. This is human arrogance. Mireille looked at him with steady eyes. No, Commander. This is human confidence. There's a difference. Jiwan had pulled up multiple screens now, her fingers moving rapidly across the controls. She was muttering to herself in Korean, words the translator did not bother to convert. Daehyun joined her, and the two humans fell into a rapid conversation, speaking so quickly that even the translator struggled to keep up. Quinn watched them with growing unease. They were not following proper procedures. They were not documenting their steps. They were just working, improvising, making intuitive leaps that should not be possible. This is madness, Quinn said quietly. Mireille, standing beside her, smiled slightly. Welcome to working with humans. The station shook again. Alarms blared louder. The countdown to destruction continued, indifferent to hope or fear. And in the corner, Jiwan looked up from her console with calm, determined eyes. Okay, she said. I think I see a path forward. It's going to be weird, and it's going to violate about 6 different safety protocols. But it should work. Should? Velthar repeated. Jiwan shrugged. Nothing's certain, Commander. But like we said, we can handle it. 2 hours had passed. The station still shook with increasing violence. But now, there was something different happening. In the engineering core, deep in the heart of Research Station Theta 7, 3 humans worked with the kind of focused chaos that made every alien observer deeply nervous. Jiwan had her arms buried inside an access panel, manipulating components that were never meant to be touched by bare hands. Sparks occasionally flew out, which she ignored completely. Her face was smudged with grease, and her uniform was torn at the shoulder, but her movements remained steady and precise. Hand me the thermal regulator, she said without looking up. Daehyun reached into their makeshift toolkit. He pulled out what looked like a kitchen temperature probe, modified with wire and what appeared to be duct tape. You mean this? That's the one. Quinn watched this exchange with her crystalline body literally vibrating with distress. That is not a thermal regulator. That is a food preparation device wrapped in adhesive tape. Yeah, Ji-won said, carefully installing the device into the quantum field projector. But it does the same thing. Just less precisely. We don't need precision right now. We need something that works good enough. Good enough. Quinn repeated the words, like they caused her pain. The quantum field projector operates at tolerances measured in picometers. Good enough is not good enough. Sure it is, Dae-hyun said cheerfully. He was hunched over a computer terminal, running calculations that made no sense according to standard physics. We're not trying to make this perfect. We're trying to make it work for about 6 more hours until the rescue ship gets here with proper parts. That was another thing that had shocked everyone. Mireille's message to the human transport ship had been answered within minutes. The ship, which had been scheduled to arrive in 9 days, was now pushing their engines past safe limits to arrive in 7 hours. The crew had not hesitated. They had not asked for authorization. They had simply said, "Understood," and changed course. Humans ran toward danger. It was one of the most disturbing things about them. Commander Velthar stood at a safe distance, watching the humans work. Half the station had already been evacuated. Shuttles had taken the non-essential personnel to the nearby research outpost on the moon, but 40 crew members remained, including all 12 of the station's core scientists. No one wanted to leave. Not when there was a chance, however small, of saving their work. Status, Velthar demanded. Ji-won pulled her arms out of the access panel. Her hands were burned in several places, angry red marks across her palms. She looked at them with mild annoyance, like they were mosquito bites rather than second-degree burns. Stabilizer 1 is back to 70%. 2 is at 65. I think I can get 3 online, but it's going to be tricky. Your hands require medical attention, Velthar said. Later, Ji-won said, already moving to the next panel. Mireille, you got those bypass cables ready? Mireille emerged from a storage room carrying what looked like a tangled mess of wires, cables, and components that had been ripped out of various non-essential systems. Got them. Also raided the kitchen for thermal elements, and the gym for magnetic resistance bands. Magnetic resistance bands? Quinn's voice had taken on a slightly hysterical edge. Those are for exercise. They're also really good at containing magnetic fields when you weave them properly, Mireille said, already helping Ji-won sort through the mess of cables. Who knew, right? The station lurched suddenly. Everyone grabbed for support. The lights flickered. When they came back on, the emergency screens showed that Stabilizer 2 had dropped to 40% capacity. We're losing ground, Dae-hyun said, but his voice was still calm. He typed faster. I need to recalculate the field harmonics. Quinn, can you give me the real-time gravitational readings from the neutron star? No. No. Of course, Quinn said, sending the data to his screen. Then she watched, as Dae-hyun did something that made her want to scream. He looked at the incredibly complex data for approximately 3 seconds, then rounded off all the numbers. What are you doing? She demanded. Those measurements are precise to 12 decimal places. Yeah. And we don't need 12 decimal places, Dae-hyun said. Still typing. 3 is fine. Maybe 4. For the critical stuff, you cannot simply round off quantum measurements. Watch me. Before Quinn could respond, the door to the engineering core hissed open. A young human male rushed in, barely out of breath despite having just docked a shuttle in some of the worst gravitational turbulence imaginable. He carried 2 large cases of equipment. Hyunwoo reporting, he said with a quick grin. Heard you guys needed some help. You came from the outpost? Velthar asked in disbelief. You flew through that? He gestured at the windows, where space itself seemed to be bending and warping from the gravitational waves. Yeah, it was a bit bumpy, Hyunwoo said, setting down the cases. But Sunmi talked me through it. She's still on the comm. If you need navigation help. As if on cue, A woman's voice came through the communication system. Hey everyone. Sunmi here. I'm monitoring the gravitational patterns from the outpost. I can give you a 2-minute warning before the worst waves hit. That's useful, Jiwon said, accepting one of the cases from Hyunwoo. All of it. Though I gotta say, the quartermaster thought I was crazy. Superconducting wire, industrial sealant, and 50 meters of fiber optic cable. Perfect. Jiwon was already pulling out components. Okay. Here's the situation. We got stabilizers 1 and 2 working at reduced capacity. 3 is completely dead and probably staying that way. 4 through 6 need to be brought online, but they all depend on having a working central processor. Which is in stabilizer 3, Hyunwoo said, catching up quickly. Right. So we need to build a new central processor out of whatever we have available. Hyunwoo blinked. Build a quantum computer processor. Out of spare parts. Not a whole processor, Daehyun corrected. Just the parts that handle field distribution. And it doesn't need to be quantum. Classical computing is fine if we run it fast enough. Quinn made a sound like breaking glass. You cannot replace a quantum processor with classical computing. Sure we can, Daehyun said. It'll just be slower and less efficient. But again, we don't need this to work forever. Just for a few hours. The humans fell into a rhythm that was mesmerizing and terrifying to watch. They did not follow procedures. They did not file safety reports. They did not ask permission before rerouting critical systems through kitchen equipment and exercise gear. They just worked. Jiwon climbed into spaces that were marked as off-limits due to radiation. Hyunwoo bypassed safety locks that were designed to prevent catastrophic failures. Daehyun ran calculations in his head that should have required supercomputers. Mireille coordinated everything, keeping track of which systems were being cannibalized and making sure nothing truly critical was destroyed. And through it all, Sunmi's voice came over the comm at regular intervals. Big wave in 90 seconds. Brace yourselves. And later, clear for the next 3 minutes. This is your window. The humans moved faster during the clear periods. They worked methodically during the rough patches, hands gripping equipment as the station shook, never dropping anything, never panicking. I don't understand, Velthar said quietly to Quinn. They should not be able to do this. The technology is too complex. The time is too short. They are not trying to understand it, Quinn said. And there was something like awe in her voice now. They are not trying to master it. They are just trying to make it work. Do you see the difference? Velthar did see. Humans did not need to know why something worked. They just needed to know that it could work. They experimented. They guessed. They tried things that should fail but sometimes succeeded. 3 hours after they had started, Jiwon stood up from the final connection. Her face was pale and she was clearly exhausted. Burns covered her hands and forearms. She had a cut above her eye that was bleeding slowly. Okay, she said. I think we're ready. Daehyun. Start the boot sequence. Daehyun's fingers danced across the keyboard. Sequence initiated. Field generators charging. Processors synchronizing. The lights flickered. The station held its breath. One by one, status lights turned green on the main console. Stabilizer 1. 75%. Stabilizer 2. 70%. Stabilizer 4. Online at 60%. Stabilizer 5. Online at 55%. Stabilizer 6. Online at 62%. The shaking did not stop, but it decreased. The screaming of metal under stress became a groan, then a whisper. The station was holding. Diagnostics? Jiwon asked, swaying slightly on her feet. Stable, Quinn said. And her voice was filled with disbelief. All systems stable. The configuration is insane and violates every engineering principle I know. But it is stable. Good enough, Jiwon said, and then her knees buckled. Mireille caught her before she hit the floor. Easy, I've got you. Just need a minute, Ji-won mumbled. You need a hospital bed and about 3 days of rest, Mireille said. But first, let's get those hands treated. Velthar watched Mireille guide the exhausted engineer toward the medical bay. The other humans were in similar states. Burned, bruised, bleeding. But they were smiling. They had done the impossible. We can handle it, Velthar said quietly, repeating the words the humans had spoken hours ago. I am beginning to understand what those words truly mean. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft hum of healing equipment. Ji-won lay on a bed, her hands wrapped in bandages that glowed faintly blue with medical nanites. She was asleep finally, her breathing deep and steady. Across from her, Hyunwoo sat with his arm in a regeneration field, scrolling through technical reports on his tablet with his free hand. Mireille checked the medical readouts with practiced efficiency. The burns were healing faster than they should. Even with the advanced alien medical technology, human regeneration was remarkable, something that had surprised the galactic community when they first made contact. Humans healed from injuries that would permanently disable other species. How is she? Daehyun asked from the doorway. He looked tired but alert, a cup of coffee in his hand. Where he had found coffee on an alien research station was anyone's guess. She'll be fine, Mireille said. The burns were bad, but nothing permanent. She should be up and moving in a few hours. Good, because we have a problem. Mireille turned to look at him. Yeah. Daehyun stepped into the medical bay, glancing at the monitors. The fix we did is holding, but barely. Stabilizer 5 is starting to drift out of alignment. In about 6 hours, it's going to fail again. Can you fix it? Not from here. Someone needs to go into the quantum chamber and manually adjust the field emitters. Mireille was quiet for a moment. Then she said, The quantum chamber is flooded with radiation, isn't it? Yeah. About 40 rads per minute. Lethal dose for most species. In about 5 minutes. And for humans? Daehyun shrugged. We can handle maybe 20 minutes before it gets really dangerous. 30. If we're lucky. That's not enough time to do the repairs. I know. Daehyun took a sip of his coffee. But I think I can do it in 15 minutes if I move fast. And if Sunmi can guide me through the timing windows, when the radiation dips. Mireille studied him carefully. You're volunteering. Someone has to. And I know the quantum field configuration better than anyone else here. He smiled that easy smile of his. Besides, we heal from this. Remember? Most species don't. Before Mireille could respond, Commander Velthar entered the medical bay with Quinn close behind. The insect-like commander's antennae were standing straight up, a sign of agitation. Absolutely not, Velthar said. He had clearly been listening to the conversation. I will not allow you to enter the quantum chamber. With respect, Commander, you don't really have a choice, Daehyun said calmly. If Stabilizer 5 fails, the whole system cascades. We lose everything. Then we evacuate. We already have shuttles standing by. And lose 8 years of research. All the data on this neutron star. All the discoveries your people have made. Daehyun set down his coffee cup. That's not acceptable. Your death is even less acceptable. Velthar's translator box struggled with the emotion in his voice. You are proposing suicide. No. I'm proposing a difficult repair in a hazardous environment. Daehyun was already moving toward the equipment lockers. There's a difference. Mireille, I'll need the radiation suit, the heavy one. It will not protect you sufficiently, Quinn said. Her crystalline voice rang with distress. The radiation in that chamber will damage you at the cellular level. Yeah, but human cells are pretty good at repairing that kind of damage, Daehyun said, pulling out the bulky radiation suit. It's kind of our thing. Mireille was already preparing medical supplies. She did not try to stop Daehyun. She understood something the aliens were still learning. Humans made their own choices about risk. You could not protect them from themselves, and they would not thank you for trying. I will prepare the treatment protocols, she said. You'll need immediate decontamination when you come out. And probably 2 days in the regeneration pod. Sounds good. Daehyun started putting on the suit. It was designed for short-term exposure, not extended work in lethal conditions. But it was better than nothing. Hyunwoo stood up from his bed, ignoring the protests from his still healing arm. I'm coming with you. 2 people can work faster than 1. No, Daehyun said firmly. We don't risk 2 people when 1 can do the job. You just said someone needs to work fast. 2 of us can do it in 10 minutes, instead of 15. That's half the radiation exposure. The 2 men looked at each other for a long moment. Then, Daehyun nodded. Okay. Suit up. This is madness. Velthar said. But his voice was weaker now. He was beginning to understand that he could not stop this. Humans would do what they decided needed to be done. While Daehyun and Hyunwoo prepared, Mireille opened a communication channel. Sunmi, you there? Right here, came the response from the distant outpost. I heard. I'm already mapping the radiation flux patterns in the quantum chamber. Can you give them windows to work in? Yeah. The flux varies based on the neutron star's rotation. Every 90 seconds, there's a 30-second window where radiation drops to about 20 rads per minute. Still dangerous, but better than 40. Good. Mireille turned to the 2 men in their radiation suits. You hear that? You work during the low windows. During the high windows, you get behind shielding. No heroes. We're not heroes, Daehyun said, his voice slightly muffled by the suit's helmet. We're just engineers fixing a problem. Jiwon stirred on her medical bed. Her eyes opened slowly. What's happening? Go back to sleep. Mireille said gently. Everything's under control. But Jiwon was already sitting up, wincing at the pain in her hands. Someone's going into the quantum chamber. We've got it handled, Daehyun said. Jiwon looked at him, then at Hyunwoo. Both of them suited up and ready. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with resigned acceptance. Okay, but you follow Sunmi's instructions exactly, and you take breaks when she tells you to. Yes, ma'am, Daehyun said with a slight smile. The journey to the quantum chamber took 10 minutes. Velthar and Quinn followed at a distance, along with several other crew members who had heard what was happening. They watched through observation windows as the 2 humans entered the sealed chamber. The moment they crossed the threshold, alarms sounded. Radiation sensors screamed warnings. Radiation level, 38 rads per minute, Quinn reported, her voice tight with worry. 40 seconds, until the low window. Through the observation glass, the crew watched as Daehyun and Hyunwoo moved to their positions. They moved carefully, but without hesitation. They had a job to do. Low window in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now. Sunmi's voice came through the comm. Immediately, both humans began working. Their movements were quick and precise. Daehyun adjusted the field emitters, while Hyunwoo recalibrated the control systems. They had obviously planned this out, dividing the work efficiently. 20 seconds until high window, Sunmi warned. The humans did not stop working. They moved faster instead. 10 seconds. Come on, Velthar muttered, his translator barely catching the words. Get to safety. 5 seconds. Daehyun finished his adjustment, and both men moved quickly behind the shielding panels in the chamber. High window, Sunmi announced. Radiation at 42 rads per minute. Through the glass, the crew could see the 2 humans crouched behind the shielding, waiting. They were not panicking. They were just waiting for the next opportunity to work. 90 seconds felt like hours. Low window, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now. The humans emerged and continued working. This pattern repeated 5 more times. Work during the low windows. Hide during the high windows. The crew watched in silence, counting the seconds, calculating the radiation dose the humans were absorbing. They have received approximately 140 rads, Quinn said quietly. That is approaching the danger threshold even for humans. How much more work do they need to do? Velthar asked. Mireille was monitoring the progress on her tablet. Maybe 2 more cycles. 3 at most. Tell them to abort, Velthar said. This is too dangerous. They won't abort, Mireille said simply. They're almost done. 2 cycles later, Daehyun's voice came through the comm. That's it. Alignment is complete. Running diagnostics now. Everyone held their breath. Diagnostics good, Hyunwoo confirmed. Stabilizer 5 is locked in at 63% capacity and holding steady. A cheer went up from the crew watching through the observation window. Get out of there, Mireille said firmly. Now, the 2 humans did not need to be told twice. They moved quickly to the exit, the door sealing behind them as soon as they cleared the threshold. In the decontamination room, they stripped off the radiation suits. Both men looked pale and tired. Daehyun's hands were shaking slightly. Hyunwoo leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Mireille was there immediately with medical scanners. 212 rads for you, she said to Daehyun. 193 for you. To Hyunwoo. You're both going into the regeneration pods. No arguments. Wasn't going to argue, Daehyun said. His smile was weaker now, but still there. But we did it. Yes, said Veltar, who had entered the decontamination room. He looked at the 2 humans with something like wonder in his compound eyes. You did it. I do not understand how, but you did it. We told you, Hyunwoo said, as Mireille guided him toward the medical bay. We can handle it. Quinn stood beside Velthar, watching the humans leave. They exposed themselves to lethal radiation. They suffered burns and cellular damage. They knew the risks, and they went anyway. Yes, Velthar said softly, they should not have been able to do this. The mathematics of their survival do not balance. No, Velthar agreed. But they did survive. That is what humans do, I think. They survive things that should kill them, and they do it so calmly that you almost believe it is normal. Through the window, they could see the station's status boards. All 5 functional stabilizers were operating in harmony. The station was holding steady. The rescue ship with proper replacement parts would arrive in 4 hours. Against all probability, the humans had succeeded. The medical bay had become crowded. 3 regeneration pods glowed softly in the dimmed lighting, each containing a human in various stages of healing. Jiwon's hands were almost completely healed now, the burned skin replaced with new tissue that was still slightly pink. Daehyun and Hyunwoo floated in their pods, their bodies slowly repairing the radiation damage at the cellular level. The speed of their recovery amazed every alien medic who reviewed their charts. Commander Velthar stood before a large display screen, reviewing footage from the past 12 hours. He had watched the recordings 3 times now, trying to understand what he had witnessed. Quinn stood beside him, her crystalline body chiming softly with thoughtful frequencies. Look at this moment, Velthar said, pausing the footage. On the screen, Jiwon was installing the makeshift thermal regulator. She knows that component should not work. You can see it in her face, but she installs it anyway. Because working poorly is better than not working at all, Quinn said. It is a philosophy that goes against everything we teach in galactic engineering schools, and yet it saved us. Velthar advanced the footage. Here. Daehyun rounds off precise measurements to 3 decimal places. This should cause catastrophic errors in his calculations. But it does not, Quinn said. Because he understands something we do not. He understands that perfect accuracy is not always necessary. Sometimes approximate is sufficient. They watched more footage in silence. The way Hyunwoo had navigated his shuttle through gravitational distortions that should have torn the small craft apart. The way Sunmi had predicted radiation patterns from a moon base hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, using nothing but intuition and quick calculations. The way the humans had coordinated without formal communication. reading each other's intentions from tiny gestures and glances. They are pattern recognition specialists, Quinn said finally. Their brains evolved to see patterns in incomplete data. They do not need all the information. They can work with fragments and extrapolate the rest. And they evolved as persistence hunters, Velthar added. I researched human evolutionary history last night. Their ancestors would chase prey for hours, days even. They would not give up. They would keep going when any sensible creature would have stopped. That explains their physical resilience, Quinn said. Their ability to heal from injuries, to function while damaged, to push past pain and exhaustion. But it does not explain this. Velthar gestured at the screen, showing all 5 humans working together in perfect synchronization. This is something else. This is social cooperation at a level we rarely see. Mireille entered the medical bay, checking on her patients. She noticed the 2 aliens watching the footage and walked over to join them. Trying to figure us out? She asked with a slight smile. Yes, Velthar admitted. I'm trying to understand how you succeeded where we would have failed. Mireille looked at the screen thoughtfully. Can I show you something? She took control of the display and pulled up different footage. Not from the station, but from Earth's history archives. Images flashed across the screen. Humans in primitive shelters, surviving ice ages. Humans crossing vast oceans in small boats. Humans building cities in deserts and jungles, and on mountainsides where no creature should live. This is our world, Mireille said. Earth tried to kill us for millions of years. Ice ages, droughts, predators, diseases, volcanoes, earthquakes. There was always something trying to end us. More images. Humans in spacesuits repairing damaged ships. Humans in underground bunkers after disasters. Humans rebuilding cities after they had been destroyed. We learned to survive by being adaptable, Mireille continued. We learned that perfect solutions take too long. We learned that good enough right now is better than perfect tomorrow. We learned to work together because alone, we die. And you learned to handle failure, Quinn said softly, understanding dawning in her crystalline voice. Exactly. Mireille smiled. Every other species in the galaxy evolved on worlds that were relatively stable and safe. Your planets did not actively try to kill you, so you built systems that never fail. You designed technology to be perfect because you had the time and resources to make it perfect. But you built people who handle failure, Velthar said, remembering Hyunwoo's words from earlier. Right. Because on Earth, failure is normal. Things break. Plans fall apart. The environment changes. We expect it. We prepare for it. And when it happens, we adapt. The door to the medical bay opened, and Ji-won emerged from her regeneration pod. She looked tired, but healthy. The burns on her hands were completely gone, leaving only faint scars that would fade in time. How long was I out? She asked, accepting a robe from Mireille. About 4 hours. The rescue ship arrived 20 minutes ago. They're installing the proper replacement parts now. Good. Ji-won stretched carefully. Any problems with the stabilizers while I was sleeping? No. Ji-won walked over to where Velthar and Quinn stood. She glanced at the display screen showing footage of the crisis. Reviewing our work? Trying to understand it? Velthar said. Ji-won, may I ask you a question? Sure. When you said we can handle it, did you know you would succeed? Ji-won thought about this for a moment. No. I knew we had a chance. I knew it was possible. But I didn't know we would succeed. 1. Ji-won thought about this. Then why say it with such confidence? Because confidence matters. If we had said, maybe we can do this or we'll try our best, you would never have let us attempt it. And more importantly, we would have been thinking about failure instead of success. Ji-won looked at the footage, showing Daehyun entering the radiation chamber. Humans perform better when we believe we can win. It's a psychological thing. So we tell ourselves we can handle it. And then we work like it's true, until it becomes true. Quinn's crystalline body chimed with confusion. That is illogical. Maybe, Jiwon said with a shrug. But it works. A message came through the communication system. It was Sunmi, from the moon base. Hey, just wanted to let everyone know that the gravitational readings have stabilized. The neutron star's turbulence is settling down. Looks like you'll have smooth sailing from here. Thank you, Sunmi, Velthar said. Your assistance was invaluable. No problem. That's what we do. There was a smile in her voice. We handle it. Over the next few hours, the rescue ship's crew worked to replace all the makeshift components with proper parts. They marveled at what the humans had built. Engineers from 3 different species examined the improvised quantum processor that Daehyun had constructed from spare parts and kitchen equipment. This should not function, one engineer kept saying. The theory is all wrong. The components are inadequate. This should not function. But it did function. That was the thing. It worked because humans needed it to work, and they made it work through sheer determination and creativity. Daehyun and Hyunwoo emerged from their regeneration pods, looking much better. The radiation damage had been repaired. Their cells had rebuilt themselves with the help of the medical technology and their own remarkable healing abilities. I'm starving, Daehyun announced. Is the kitchen still operational? Yes, Mireille said, though you might want to apologize to the chef. We borrowed some of his equipment. Well, borrowed, Jiwon repeated with a grin. Is that what we're calling it? The humans gathered in the kitchen area, which had become an informal meeting place. Other crew members joined them, drawn by curiosity and something else. Respect, perhaps, or maybe just a desire to be near these strange creatures who had saved them all. Velthar found himself sitting with the humans as they ate. Quinn was there too, along with several other senior staff members. I have been thinking, Velthar said, about what makes humans different from other species. Oh boy, Daehyun said around a mouthful of food. Here we go. What's wrong with humans conversation? No, Velthar said quickly. Not what is wrong, what is right. That got everyone's attention. You face challenges differently than we do, Velthar continued. We create perfect solutions. We follow established procedures, but this takes time. Sometimes, too much time. And when you face a problem, Quinn added, you act immediately. You analyze while you work. You create solutions that are imperfect but functional. You ignore procedures if they slow you down. Sounds about right, Jiwon said. For 8 years, we studied this neutron star, Velthar said. We built perfect systems. We followed every safety protocol. We did everything correctly, and when our perfect system failed, we had no answer. We were going to lose everything, because we did not know how to handle failure. He looked at each of the humans in turn. You saved 8 years of research. You saved this station. You saved lives. And you did it by breaking every rule we hold sacred. You did it by accepting imperfection, by working with incomplete information, by taking risks that terrify us. We also got pretty beat up doing it, Hyunwoo pointed out, holding up his arm, which still showed faint marks from the radiation exposure. Yes, Velthar said. And that is perhaps the most remarkable thing. You knew you would be hurt. You went anyway. Someone had to, Mireille said simply. Quinn leaned forward. I have been analyzing human psychology and evolutionary history. I believe I understand now. You evolved in chaos. You learned to thrive in unpredictable environments. Every other species in the galaxy evolved toward specialization and perfection. But humans evolved toward adaptability and resilience. We're generalists, Jiwon said, nodding. We're not the strongest, or the fastest, or the smartest at any one thing. But we're pretty good at everything. And we're really good at figuring things out on the fly. Your greatest strength, Quinn said. is that you do not need perfect conditions to succeed. You succeed despite imperfect conditions. Perhaps because of them. The conversation continued late into the night cycle. The humans shared stories from Earth's history. The aliens shared their own perspectives. And slowly, understanding grew between them. As Velthar finally prepared to leave, he turned to Jiwan one last time. When the next crisis comes, will you say it again? Will you tell me we can handle it? Jiwan smiled. Probably. Though hopefully next time, it'll be less dramatic. I hope so too, Velthar said. But if it is dramatic, I will believe you. Because I have seen what humans can do when they say those words. 1 week had passed since the crisis. Research Station Theta-7 orbited its neutron star peacefully. All systems operating at full capacity. The makeshift repairs had been replaced with proper components. But the station's engineers had kept detailed records of everything the humans had done. That improvised quantum processor was now being studied at 3 different universities. In the station's main conference room, a celebration was underway. Crew members from a dozen species gathered to mark the successful completion of the 8-year research project. The data had been preserved, the mission was complete, and everyone was alive. Ji-Wan stood near the refreshment table, talking quietly with Dae-Hyun and Mireille. All 3 looked healthy and rested now. The only signs of their ordeal were faint scars that would fade with time. So I heard you got a message from the Galactic Council, Mireille said to Ji-Wan. Yeah. They want me to present at their next engineering symposium. Talk about improvised repair techniques in crisis situations. Dae-Hyun laughed. They want you to teach them how to break the rules. Something like that. Ji-Wan smiled. Though I think what they really want is to understand how we think. Across the room, Velthar was having a similar conversation with Quinn. The insect-like commander had been unusually thoughtful since the crisis ended. I submitted my report to the council, Velthar said. I recommended that human crew members be added to all critical research stations. That is a significant recommendation, Quinn observed. What was their response? They are considering it, but there is resistance. Some council members believe humans are too reckless, too unpredictable. They are those things, Quinn said. But they are also effective. Perhaps the council needs to learn what we learned. That different does not mean wrong. Before Velthar could respond, the station's communication system activated. An automated message began playing, one that made every crew member in the room stop and listen. Emergency broadcast to all vessels and stations in Sector 7. Diplomatic transport ship Galactic Unity has suffered catastrophic engine failure. Life support failing. 217 passengers and crew. Rescue vessels are 12 hours away. Any ships capable of providing assistance, please respond immediately. Quote, the room fell silent. 12 hours was too long. Life support would fail in 8 hours at most. 217 people would die. Velthar was already moving toward the command center, but something made him stop. He turned to look at the humans. Ji-Wan was staring at the speaker, her mind already working through the problem. Dae-Hyun had pulled out his tablet and was accessing the emergency broadcast data. Mireille had that calm, focused expression that Velthar had learned to recognize. Don't even think about it, Velthar said, but his voice lacked conviction. We cannot reach them in time. The gravitational currents around the neutron star make fast travel impossible. Even if we left immediately, it would take us 14 hours to get there. What if we didn't go around the gravitational currents? Dae-Hyun asked, still looking at his tablet. What if we went through them? Every alien in the room made sounds of shock or disbelief. That is impossible, Quinn said flatly. The gravitational forces would tear any ship apart. Maybe, Ji-Wan said, and Velthar felt his antennae droop because he knew what was coming. If we modified our shields to create a gravitational buffer, and if we timed our approach to match the neutron star's rotation cycle, we might be able to surf the gravitational waves. Surf, Quinn repeated. You want to surf gravitational waves from a neutron star? Well, when you say it like that, it sounds crazy, Daehyun said with a grin. Because it is crazy. Hyunwoo had joined the conversation, along with Sunmi, who was connected via communication link from the moon base. How long would this route take? Hyunwoo asked. Daehyun was already calculating. If everything works perfectly, 6 hours, maybe 7. And if it doesn't work perfectly? Velthar asked, though he already knew he was not going to like the answer. Then we die horribly, crushed by forces that our bodies cannot withstand. Daehyun said this cheerfully, as if discussing the weather. But 217 people definitely die if we don't try. So, the math is pretty simple. Jiwon was already heading toward the door. I need to check our shield generators. See if they can be modified for gravitational buffering. I'll work on the navigation calculations, Sunmi said through the comm. This is going to require some extremely precise timing. I'll prep the engine systems, Hyunwoo added. We're going to need every bit of power we can generate. Mireille looked at Velthar. We'll need medical supplies ready. For the passengers we're rescuing, and for our own crew. This is going to be rough. Velthar stood frozen, watching the humans mobilize. Around him, the alien crew members looked at each other with uncertainty and fear. Then Quinn made a sound like breaking crystal, which was her species' version of a laugh. Well, Commander, will you let them try? Velthar thought about the past week, about improvised repairs that should not have worked, about humans walking into radiation that should have killed them, about makeshift solutions built from kitchen equipment and exercise gear. He thought about 3 words. We can handle it. Yes, he said finally, but I am coming with you. So am I, Quinn said. And I, said a Velen navigator. Count me in, added a crystalline engineer. Within minutes, a crew had volunteered. Not all of them, but enough. 15 beings from 6 different species, ready to risk everything to save strangers they had never met. The humans looked surprised. You sure about this? Jiwon asked Velthar. This is going to be dangerous. Really dangerous. I am sure, Velthar said. You have taught us something important this week. You have taught us that sometimes the correct choice is the risky one. That sometimes doing nothing is more dangerous than doing something. That sometimes we must trust in our ability to adapt and survive, rather than in our ability to plan and prepare. He clicked his mandibles together in what humans had learned was his version of a smile. Besides, if you humans can handle it, surely we can at least try. 2 hours later, the modified research vessel launched from Station Theta 7. The ship was not designed for rescue operations. It was not designed for the kind of flying they were about to attempt, but it was fast, and it had good shields, and it had a crew that was willing to try the impossible. Jiwon sat at the engineering station, monitoring the shield modifications. Beside her, a crystalline engineer named Karin worked on power distribution. They had formed a quick partnership, the humans' intuitive approach complementing the aliens' systematic precision. Daehyun stood near the navigation console where Sunmi's hologram provided real-time calculations. The young Velen navigator, whose name was Tilren, listened intently as the humans explained their plan. We'll hit the first gravitational wave here, Sunmi said, pointing to a spot on the star chart. You'll need to angle the ship 43 degrees to the ecliptic and increase speed by exactly 18%. That will push our engines past their safe limits, Tilren said nervously. Yeah, Daehyun agreed. That's why we'll only do it for 12 seconds. Then we drop back to normal speed and let the gravitational wave carry us. Let it carry us, Tilren repeated. We are going to ride a gravitational wave like it is a water current. Exactly. Daehyun looked pleased. You're getting it. Hyunwoo was in the engine room with 2 other engineers, making last-minute adjustments. Mireille had converted part of the cargo bay into an emergency medical center, ready to receive injured passengers from the damaged ship. and on the bridge, Velthar sat in the command chair with Quinn beside him. They watched the neutron star growing larger on the view screen, its gravitational field beginning to affect the ship. "This is actually happening," Quinn said quietly. "We are actually going to attempt this." "Yes," Velthar said, "though I still question my own sanity." "First wave in 30 seconds, Sunmi announced. Everyone hold on to something. The ship began to shake. The gravitational forces were building, pulling at the vessel from multiple directions at once. Alarm indicators started lighting up across the bridge. "Shields holding," Jiwan reported. "Gravitational buffer is active. Speed increasing to mark," Tilran said, his paws gripping the controls tightly. "Angle adjusting to 43 degrees. 15 seconds. Sunmi counted down. 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, the ship hit the gravitational wave and everything went insane. The vessel lurched sideways, then up, then spun in a way that made everyone's stomach protest. Warning alarms shrieked. Lights flickered. Then, suddenly, they were moving faster than they had ever moved before. Pulled along by invisible currents of bent space-time. "Shields at 94%, Jiwan reported. Her voice strained. "Holding steady." We are not dying," Quinn said with what might have been surprise or relief. "Not yet," Daehyun said cheerfully. "We've got 5 more waves to catch." "Not yet." The journey took 6 hours and 43 minutes. 6 hours of the most intense flying that any of them had ever experienced. They rode gravitational waves, like surfers on an ocean. They pushed their engines past every safety limit. They made split-second decisions based on incomplete data and human intuition. And they made it. The Galactic Unity appeared on their view screen, listing badly with debris trailing from its damaged engines. Rescue vessels from the nearest station were still 5 hours away, but the crew of Research Station Theta-7 was here now. "Life support is failing," Mireille reported, scanning the damaged ship. "We need to evacuate immediately." The evacuation took 3 hours. 3 hours of moving frightened passengers from one ship to another. 3 hours of medical triage and emergency repairs. 3 hours of organized chaos where humans and aliens worked side by side, each bringing their own strengths to the crisis. When the last passenger was safely aboard and the rescue vessels finally arrived to take over, the crew of Station Theta-7 sat exhausted in their ship. Velthar looked around at his crew. Humans and aliens together, all of them bruised and tired and alive. They had saved 217 lives. "We did it," he said softly. "Yeah," Jiwan said, leaning back in her chair with her eyes closed. "We handled it." 6 weeks later, in the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Minho stood before the assembled representatives of 43 species. Beside him, Engineer Sujin prepared a presentation on human problem-solving methodologies. The debate had been intense. Some council members wanted to restrict human involvement in critical operations. Others wanted to expand it. The galaxy was trying to decide what to do about humanity. "With respect to the council," Minho said, "you are asking the wrong question. You are asking, what should we do about humans? When you should be asking, what can we learn from humans? And what is there to learn?" asked a council member from a species that valued tradition and order. How to be reckless. How to ignore safety protocols. How to risk lives unnecessarily. "No," said a new voice. Commander Velthar stepped forward, having been invited to speak as a witness. How to be resilient. How to adapt. How to succeed when perfect solutions are not available. He gestured to Sujin, who began her presentation. Images appeared, showing the improvised repairs, the radiation chamber entry, the gravitational wave riding, the rescue of the Galactic Unity. For generations, the galactic community has built systems that never fail, Velthar continued. We have created perfection through careful planning and rigid adherence to procedures. This has served us well in stable times. He paused, letting the weight of his next words settle. But times are not always stable. And when our perfect systems fail, we have no answer. We have forgotten how to handle crisis, how to improvise, how to take necessary risks. Quinn stepped forward to join him. Humans have not forgotten these things. They evolved in a hostile environment where crisis was normal. They learned to handle it, and they can teach us to do the same. Minho nodded his thanks to both of them. Humans do not succeed despite chaos. We succeed through chaos. We do not need perfect conditions. We create workable conditions from whatever we have available, and we do not give up, even when logic says we should. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of dozens of different species. You are right to be cautious of us. We are different. We think differently. We act differently. But different does not mean wrong. It means complementary. Where you have perfection, we have adaptability. Where you have order, we have flexibility. Where you have caution, we have courage. Pretty speech, said one skeptical council member. But words are easy. Actions matter. Then judge us by our actions, Minho said simply. Research station. Theta 7 should have been destroyed. 217 people on the Galactic Unity should have died. But they did not. Because humans said 3 words. We can handle it. And then, we did. The debate continued for hours. But in the end, the council voted. Not unanimously, but by a clear majority. Human crew members would be added to critical stations throughout the galaxy, not to replace existing protocols, but to complement them, to provide a different perspective, to be ready when perfect systems failed and creative solutions were needed. Later, as Minho prepared to leave the council chambers, "Thank you," the commander said, "for saving my station, for saving those passengers, for teaching us what we had forgotten." "You're welcome," Minho said. "But honestly, you taught yourselves when you volunteered to come on that rescue mission. When you trusted the humans to try something crazy, that was you, choosing adaptation over caution. You're learning." "Perhaps," Velthar said, "though I hope we do not need to learn through quite so many dramatic crises." Minho laughed. "Well, I can't promise that. Humans tend to attract crisis. But I can promise that whenever it comes, whatever it is, we'll say those 3 words. Quote, we can handle it." Velthar said, "Exactly." As Minho walked away, Velthar thought about the future. About humans spreading through the galaxy, bringing their chaos and creativity and determination with them. About the changes this would bring to the careful, ordered galactic society. It would be different. It would be challenging. It would sometimes be frightening, but as he had learned over the past few weeks, different was not the same as wrong. And humans had something the galaxy desperately needed. The ability to face the impossible and make it possible. They said, "We can handle it." And then they did. And perhaps, with their help, the rest of the galaxy could learn to do the same.